this video we'll be going over past paper questions for computer science IGCSE. So we're using a for loop to loop through this array and do whatever processes we want inside. The question wants us to rewrite the algorithm in pseudocode using a condition controlled loop instead of a count controlled loops. What we have now is a count controlled loops. It is a for loop. And you want to change it into a condition controlled loops. So we could either use while or repeat until. Any of those answers would be considered correct. So if we want to use a condition controlled loop and we want to loop through this array 10 times, we know that we want to loop through 10 times. Let's create firstly a counter and set it equal to 1. And then we're gonna, firstly let's take the repeat until example, right? So we're gonna repeat and we're gonna put whatever processes we want to do inside of here. And after that, we're gonna increment this counter, right? So count equals count plus 1. And after that, we're just gonna use the until statement. And of course, we wanna loop through this statement 10 times, right? So until count is greater than 10. So this loop will keep on, firstly, count will be 1, and you will enter this loop. It will go through whatever processes we have inside here, right? And then count will be count plus 1. We're incrementing counter, and then we're going to be looping again and again and again and again until counter is greater than 10. And this way, we will be looping 10 times using a condition controlled loop. Okay, so this is repeat until, and these processes are exactly the same. So in the exam, you don't do this. You basically write here output, please enter your name, and so on and so forth. Just copy paste whatever is in here. It does not matter that much. So now let's try going through this question again, but just using while loops. Okay, and it's exactly the same. It's correct here and it's correct here. All right. But it's just different condition controlled loops. So if we want to do it in while loops, firstly we have to create a counter exactly the same way, right? For loops, the counter is built in this for loop statement. However, for while and repeat until loops, if we want to do it in this way, we would have to create the counter before the loop and then use it inside of the loop. This would be the only difference. This is basically the trick of this question. So we will create our counter before we enter the loop, and then we will check for our condition before we enter loop. And this is the difference between while and repeat until loops. Alright, so we're checking for the condition before we enter the loop. So while our counter is less than or equal to 10, we're going to enter this loop. Inside this loop, we're going to execute the same exact lines of code that we have here. You're just going to copy paste them inside of here. So output whatever, and then input whatever, right? And after that, inside the loop, you're going to increment counter, right? So count equals count plus 1. And after that, we're gonna end while. And this increment is a very, very important step, because if you don't increment, this will be an infinite loop. Counter will stay at 1. And this loop will keep on looping until counter is greater than 10. And counter will never be greater than 10. And therefore, this will be an infinite loop. And your code would be broken. It would be a wrong answer. So this increment is very important. Count will be 1. And you will enter this loop because counter is less than or equal to 10. And then we're going to increment counter. It's going to be 2. We're going to enter the loop, and then we're going to increment it. Counter is 3, and we're going to keep on incrementing and looping until counter is 10. And that's why we're going to loop through this loop or this block of code 10 times. So this is basically the exact same output as this for loop, however with the implementation using while loops or repeat until loops. So if you want to change from count controlled loops to condition controlled loops, you will just create a counter before the loop and then use it in the condition of the loop. And you do not have to memorize anything. I need you to understand this concept, not memorize it. Okay, so now let's try to do a flowchart tracing question. So we need to trace this flowchart using this input data. So we're going to start our program and then we're going to input score. So we're going to use our first input data, which is 21. So now score is 21. Is score greater than or equal to 40? No, 21 is less than 40. Is it greater than or equal to 60? No, it's not. Is it greater than or equal to 80? No, it's not. Therefore, grade is equal to the character D. The character D. So we're going to include the quotation marks too. And then we're going to trace this arrow. It will output you achieved a grade, right? You achieved a, and then the variable grade, right? So you're going to write and you achieved a, and then the variable grade, which is basically a D. So you achieved a D. All right, and now stop. So we're gonna loop again because we have multiple inputs. We need to go over all of our inputs. So we're gonna start. We're gonna input score using the second input we have is 46. Is score greater than or equal to 40? Yes, it is. So our grade is C, because 46 is greater than 40. And then if it was not, we would go on through here, and because it is, we go through here. So the grade is C, and then we trace this line downwards and then going back over here. So we skip basically everything above this, and then we continue to output you achieved a, and then the grade, right? So you achieved a, and then we don't write the word grade, we write what is inside of the variable grade, which is a C, all right? And then we are done with the 46. We go over again using the 63. So we input 63. 63 is greater than or equal to 40. It is, score is greater than or equal to 40. So our grade is C. And then you achieve the C again. We're going to output the same output here, right? And then we're done with the 63. Basically stop. It's the exact same algorithm. Going over the 91, we're going to input score. So is score greater than or equal to 40? Yes, it is. The grade will be C again. And then we're going to go over here and output this line again. It will be exactly the same thing. And then we're done with the 91, and our last piece of input will be 12. So we're going to input the score 12, right? And then score 12 is not greater than or equal to 40, so we go down here. And it's not greater than or equal to 60, so we go down here. And it's not greater than or equal to 80, so we go down here. Grade will be D, and then we will output you achieved a D, right? Because of this line. And then we're going to stop, and we don't have any more data, so we are done with this part of the question. We just go through and imagine that we are the compiler. We are the computer, and we're running this question, and we imagine the correct way that the compiler would think about this logically. Just trace every step by step, and it will be very easy. After the first few loops, everything will be very systematic, and you will fly through this question. It must be easy marks in your exam. So part B asks us to explain how the flowchart can be changed to produce the correct output. And if you traced this flowchart correctly and thought about it for a little, when the score is greater than or equal to 80, the grade is A. That means when the score is between 80 and 100, the grade is A. When the score is between 60 and 80, right, score is greater than or equal to 60, when it's from 60 till 80, score must be B. And when it's between 40 and 60, right, 40 and 60, score must be C. And when it's less than 40, it should be D, right? This is the correct version, right? But what's actually happening here is that when it's less than 40, it's D, and when it's greater than 40, it's C. This is our output now. 21 and 12, they both are D, and when we have 46 or 63 or 91, they're both C's, even though This must be a C, this must be a B, and this must be an A, right? However, there is an error here. So firstly, you need to identify the error. Why is this happening, right? What is the problem? This is the problem. You have an incorrect grade for each score. So what is the reason for this problem? Well, the reason is that we have an incorrect order. When we have score and we check if it's greater than or equal to 40, right? So basically this is the 40 mark, and this is the 60 mark, and this is the 80 mark, right? These are our three boundaries that we're checking through. And we're checking if it's greater than or equal to 40. It could be in this entire section, right? So, and then we check if it's greater than or equal to 60, and then if it's greater than or equal to 80. So, because we're checking 40 in the beginning, we're checking for everything. So everything will be basically whatever is in 40, which is a C, right? A C greater than or equal to 40. So in all actuality, to be correct, you would have to firstly check for the 80, and then check for the 60, and then check for the 40, right? So the correct way would be to input score, and then check, basically put this entire block over here, and then check if score is greater than or equal to 80, and if it is, the grade will be A. If it's not greater than or equal to 80, we would go down and check if it's greater than or equal to 60. If it is greater than or equal to 60, but not greater than or equal to 80, that ensures us that the score will be between 60 and 80, right? And therefore the grade will be B. However, if it is not greater than or equal to 60, that means it's less than 60. And now we check if it's greater than or equal to 40. And that ensures us that we're checking for 40 to 60. And that is what we want, which is basically our C. And if it's not in this range too, that means it's a D, because it's less than 40. However, so this is basically the correct setup. The current setup is checking if score is between 40 and 100, and that's it, right? Because it's either between 40 or 100 or between 0 and 40. And this is the incorrect way. The correct way is to check if it's between 80 to 100, and then check if it's between 60 and 80, and then 40 and 60, and then less than 40. So again, you don't have to memorize anything. You just need to think about this logically and understand the way that the flowchart is going through. Imagine that your brain is the compiler and you're going through this program step by step, right? So think about it, understand the problem, and then explain how you can produce the correct output. You can gain a bunch of marks for this question using, for example, just tell them that you have to check for score is greater than or equal to 80 first, and to check for 40 at the last. And when you switch these two, you have to switch these two, right? So when score is greater than or equal to 80, you put it here, you have to put grade is equal to A here. And when you put the score is greater than or equal to 40 here, you have to put the grade is equal to C over here, right? Stuff like that. And that alone gives you the 4 marks that you want, right? Just explain more. Just try to explain your understanding, and hopefully you will get all the marks that you expect. And that will be all for today. We have gone over some questions about the included material that we have gone through in our playlist until now. If you have any questions or would like extra help, feel free to reach out for me. My contact information is in the description below. Thanks for watching.